welcome to episode 10 on Della Roots. I'm your co-host Anita with your other co-host Mireya. Today's topic is going to be generational trauma, aka intergenerational trauma, and Latinx parenting. But before we get into the episode, Mireya, mental health check and week check. How are you doing? What's up?
Hey, I'm good. I'm doing really well. Not doing my homework, but I am good. Work is chilling. I love my job still, and I don't know. It's Saturday night, so I'm looking forward to girls' night for sure. I love dancing, so I think I'm gonna do that. Kind of treat myself, dress up, look good, feel good. What about you?
So for me, I've been meditating actually. So meditating has been really good. I like to go outside to the park, to a quiet place, sit on my cobija, meditate, write poems, and just kind of take in the air. Been lagging on my homework, but thankfully, my teachers or my professors have been like, just get it in as soon as you can. So, of course I lag.
Yeah.
But it's gonna get in. It's gonna get in soon. So we've been chilling. After this, I'm gonna go eat.
Yeah.
And then probably knock out.
How did you feel after you performed at the Casa Slam that one night? Like, do you feel like, yeah, like I'm gonna write some more poetry?
It was my first time, y'all, and it was honestly really, really great. It was my first time reading poetry out loud in front of people. So it just felt like very good, like just speaking out into just everyone's mind, everyone's listening. It was just different, and I really want to do it again. There's this professor, well, not professor, but she was invited to one of my classes, and she's also like an author. She writes poems and stuff, and she invited me to come to like one of her events. So I have to hit her up again. But yeah, so I think it's good. Cool.
We love women who write. Love
Yes.
that. Great. All right, y'all. So, before we get into it, I think we should definitely define what generational trauma is, right, for our listeners.
Yes, for sure. So this is from Very Well Mind. So y'all can look it up. So they state intergenerational trauma occurs when the effects of trauma are passed down between generations. This can occur if a parent experienced abuse as a child or adverse childhood experiences. And the cycle of trauma and abuse impacts their parenting. And so then, of course, that goes on to like different generations and stuff. So that's what generational trauma is, or aka intergenerational trauma.
And I also feel like we need to clarify for our listeners that this is not to bag or throw shade on anybody who's parenting, co-parenting, or single, living in a single parent household, trying to parent, especially in the Latinx community. This isn't to throw shade or to police anybody's, mothers, fathers, or any type of parent. It is just to like create that this platform is meant to just kind of unpack those issues. And obviously Anita and I are not parents. I'm not a mother, neither is she, so we can only speak on so much. But this is to acknowledge the trauma from when we were younger, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that, because it isn't until our current generation that now people are finally acknowledging how important, how severe, and how sensitive our brains are at such a young age, obviously. So we know that, but I feel like, and I always say this, is that our generation is, creating not so many new things, but I'm trying to word it, like finally talking about it, right? Finally having that plática, finally acknowledging it, really. And so I do want to point out that two things can be true at the same time. We can highlight the things in our childhood and family dynamics that didn't feel safe, comfortable, or good. And at the same time, we can be appreciative and proud of our family inheritance and roots. And so as we use this platform to talk about us trying to decolonize, and even if we want to decolonize our minds or, move forward to revolutionizing our minds, it always starts in the home, right? The home and the classroom, etc. But the home is very, very, very important. And so as we go into this conversation, I just want to point that out. And of course, the types of parenting, the traumas, the triggers, yeah, and just so forth. So I'm excited for this. I'm really looking forward to it. This is something that I like to, well, so does Anita. We both like to focus on, and we're realizing as we get older how important mental health is. And so this kind of taps into mental health, obviously, as well. So with that being said, I want to share with y'all a little tweet from Simona Lisa. And I don't know when the tweet was. A lot of the information I'm going to share with y'all tonight is from Latinx Parenting, which is one of my favorite, what do you call it? Accounts on Instagram that we follow, that La Roots follows, and I personally follow. And the tweet from Simona Lisa goes, if you hear gentle parenting and automatically assume it means a lack of discipline, that's because you equate abuse to discipline. You should unpack that in therapy. So we talk about this a lot, right? Is where a lot of, in most, no, I don't want to say most, it's very common in, our homes, especially in the Latinx community, to equate fear with respect, right? And then fear is respect as well. It is like discipline, right? And so the first question of the night is, when you were a child, did you get disciplined and learn respect? And if so, what did that look like? Anita, take it away.
That's an interesting question. I did learn respect always. It was never from a form of like, my mother hitting me or anyone hitting me. It was always like verbal, like, this is how we respect other people. This is how we respect elders and stuff. Discipline for me, I never got disciplined in the sense of getting hit, or as, some of our compañeros and compañeras might say, like, oh, con la chancla. That never happened to me. So yeah, I guess like in a way, like growing up, I did grow up with like a Nintendo and all that. So if I, let's say, was misbehaving, which I rarely ever did, I was a very, I guess, good girl. I didn't like to get my mom back. Cause her eyes just, her eyes give it away. When she was mad, you can tell by her eyes. And I was like, oh no. But she would take my Nintendo away for like a day or for a few hours. And that was my discipline, I guess. But yeah, I can't really think of anything, that would make my mom do something like that often though.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't relate to it.
Okay. You'll maybe think of some as we go on. For me, I did get disciplined, but you know what? As I share my story, it's a lot different from peers or friends that have shared, and it also taps into that fear equates to respect situation. And for me, it was what I learned in the home was, if I cussed or if I just did something my mom didn't like, and I wasn't really like a rebel kid until high school, or like, violent, or just rambunctious. It was more no, elementary through middle school, it was easy to listen to her, and she didn't really expect much from me, thankfully. And but yeah, it was just like chores and stuff, and if I acted out or whatever, she would, at a young age, she kind of just would put me on timeouts or something. Kind of, yeah, just like how you said, revoke those privileges of like TV privileges, maybe if it's your computer, laptop, anything you find fun, right? Take that away. What else? Yeah, just sitting in a corner, kind of trying to be quiet. And I cried a lot for no reason. I was like a big brat. And so we would definitely have to try and play the quiet game. Or she would just ignore me and know that, because I would definitely, 9 out of 10 times, I was just trying to get attention and be petty. So she did that, like, I'm going to ignore you thing. And you notice as a young kid how different families in public judge you. So it's like they either judge you because the parent smacked you and you got your shit together, or they judge you and then they tell you were too violent, or they judge you when you don't do anything at all, and they're like, this parent is obviously not disciplining their kids. Obviously we know who has the power, it's the kid. And so either way you're going to be judged. But compared to like when I would listen to friends stories in their home, it was much more violent. And it's really sad how they normalize these stories as they tell it now in our early 20s. I had a friend who he said that his dad would lock him in a room, in a dark room. And mind you, this guy now doesn't really sleep well. Like he has like not sleep paranoia, but he always has nightmares, and like he wakes up sometimes in sweats. I don't know if that correlates with that. I would like to believe so, but who knows? But he like jokes about it to this day, but I'm just like, that's not normal. That's really violent, because you're 5 years old and the punishment is you're gonna go to your room. I'm gonna lock you in here. And I'm not talking 10 minutes. I'm talking about like an hour, 2 hours. You're screaming and kicking, or you're hungry, and they're like, nope, you're not going to come out until you get over this quote unquote tantrum. So that was a bit excessive in my opinion.
Yeah.
And there's other stories where either that same friend or different friends have had their parents like, whip them, beat them, put soap in their mouth, sometimes throw a belt at them. And the lashes can be pretty severe. Because sometimes they're cut, sometimes they're bruises. My mom never put her hands on me. The only time she did was when a couple times when I was in high school, and I really mouthed off at her, and I was just super disrespectful. I kind of like knew that's where I drew the line, and I like just lost all respect for my mom at that time. And so we both kind of hit our rock bottom as far as like kind of respecting each other in that sense. Now our relationship is a lot different. She's like my best friend. But yeah. And then one time when I was a lot younger, and I cussed out a neighbor's, like my neighborhood, my childhood friend. And she was just so disappointed. She's like, I expected more from you. And she just, kind of popped me in the mouth for being super embarrassing and just rude and disrespectful. And then lying to her about it later on. So, but yeah, these friends have these really sad stories of getting whipped or beaten, locked in rooms, having to sit on their hands for long periods of time until the hands go numb. I can't think of any other ones, but
that's crazy. That's very morbid.
Absolutely.
My mom never put her hands on me. She never did anything like that. But I don't know if this makes a difference, but I also was an only child for like 20 years of my life. I did hang out with like my cousins, like with my tia and my cousins and all that. But yeah, I grew up as an only child, so I mostly played alone, kept to myself, was really quiet. But yeah, like those stories of like I've heard like how people disciplining as in like abuse their children and hit them for doing things that like young kids, like teenagers and like below, like they're learning the world and they're exploring. And I feel like, like to me, it's like you should not be hitting them for those things. I feel like there are other ways to like, tell them what's right and what's wrong and whatever that may be for you. But of course, I'm not judging, but I'm judging kind of because like you should not be hitting no kids.
No.
But, can I tap into something real quick?
Yeah.
There's this book actually that's by Bell Hooks. It's called All About Love. And in that book, there's a certain section, I don't know if it's chapter 2 or chapter 3. I think, or maybe chapter 1. I don't know, between 1 and 3. And Bell Hooks taps into I'm not going to quote it because I can't remember like exactly what the words were, but what it was that she was at some dinner with like professors and stuff, and they were all talking about like, I guess, like kids and disciplining and whatnot. And I guess a lot like of the mothers were saying that the female, like not the females, but the women professors would say that they would result to like hitting as a last result, whereas the males would result as like the first thing that they do, with like hitting as a form of discipline. And then Bell Hooks is like sitting there and is like taking this all in, right? And then Bell Hooks mentions like like kids don't really have anyone that they can call for protection or anything like that. Like they rely on their parents to protect them. And then